I'd been raised in the nursery. I loved plants, and so I became the fastest transplanter Ing Floral ever had. I uh, went to work for Ing Floral after I graduated with my master's. But that only lasted a short while because they had problems and I couldn't live with them being open on Sundays. So I went to a wholesaler, and then uh, I went to an exhibit design firm, and I was vice president. And that was an amazing experience. I worked all over the country designing exhibits, biologically oriented, and I would use my ecology background to. So at one time, all the exhibits in the desert house at the whole zoo. And while I was there, I had this idea. Look, I know how to grow plants, and nobody has ever grown the native plants of Utah. They are just thought of as being wild. And so since I knew how to grow plants, I decided I would start a company called Native Plants. And I had a friend design a logo, and I got it put on the side of the truck, and I just started landscaping with natives. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but it is the most rewarding. I had,
Next to being a dad.
yeah, that's true. It's absolutely true, dear. I've been married for years.
We all know that was tough. But it is. Starting a company requires
a sacrifice on the part of everyone.
Yeah.
I had an employee who stole from me and falsely said that I had paid the third quarter withholding, and I hadn't. The IRS called me in, locked the door from the inside, and said, "Mr. Alder, you're in a 1% category. And if you don't pay back the $5,000 you owe plus interest, we will come and chain and lock your doors." I said, "If you do that, all my plants will die. I'll have nothing to pay you." Anyway, I went home.
And they said tough beans.
I went home and I went to this woman and I said, "Marian, we have to lift our second mortgage," which was already in place, "and build another $5,000. And we may lose our home." You know what she said? "It's okay, sweetheart. We'll start again. We had our dream." That's burned into my memory because, I sacrificed time and effort, but Marian was ready to sacrifice everything we had to allow me to continue to have my dream. And that's the way she acted through our whole life. She would take a move whenever we moved. She would do whatever it took to make things work. She was the best at handling a budget. I mean, I didn't make a lot of money. Even as a founder of that company, I took low wage, and she made it work. I can still remember when we had 5 teenagers, and she would have 2 carts of groceries. And it was like $600, and that was an astonishing amount of money. And I had a contract with the state highway department, and all the plants on I-215 are mine. They're all native plants that I grew, and they've never been watered. I didn't have a mentor, and I was headed for bankruptcy when I had a newspaper article published on what I was doing. They took pictures of me out on the freeway, drilling holes for the plants. This newspaper article came out, and it had they put me in the Sunday section, and my face was almost full size, holding up one of my sagebrush plants in full color in the Sunday supplement, and then an article in the inside, and that article changed everything. In 2 days, Pete Meldrum walked through the door. Pete founded Myriad Genetics, a very famous pharmaceutical company in Salt Lake. But before he did that, helped me with native plants. He came to me 2 days after the article published, and he said, "Mike, do you have a business plan?" And I said, "Yes." "Can I see it?" "Sure." I said, "Good grief, I'm gonna go bankrupt here." And he said,
Elmworth plants.
"I'll see you tomorrow." And he came back. And then he sat across the desk and he said, "Mike, would you sell half your company for $100,000? "Yes, if you'll be the CEO and I'll be the president, because I get the business is too hard for me. I don't know how to do it." And let me tell you, that was the best decision I ever made, because for the next 12, 14 years, we doubled every year in sales, and we ended up with 730 employees, 48 PhDs, operations in 4 countries and 7 different states. And we were ready to go public.
And they did.
And we went public on Black Monday of 1987 and lost everything. I went to work for the governor for 5 years.
Of Utah.
The governor of Utah under Governor Baggett. And that was very rewarding. I became the director of technology development for the whole state. Then, when the governor changed, I started a company that started up companies and did that for like 2 or 3 years. And all of a sudden, this job appeared in Alabama, and I had my twins ready to go on missions, and I didn't have any money saved for their mission. And so I responded to this request for somebody to head
Economic.
organization to start companies in Alabama. The first visit, I went alone. And then the second visit, they invited Marian because they really wanted me to come. And some Mormons that were affiliated with the organization that wanted me to come took us to dinner, and it was, all out whining and dining to try to get us to Alabama. And we decided to go.
It wasn't super hard because I lived in Alabama as a kid and loved it.
And Marian was so excited to go back. And I was unsure, but we had to sell the house, so she stayed behind, and I went alone. And I still remember the first week I was there, the boss gave me his office. He was off somewhere, and he was sitting there, and it started to rain. And it rained so hard that the water was running off the sidewalks 1 inch to 2 inches deep. It looked like the world was coming to an end. Like,
Why wasn't everyone running away from the flood? They're like,
I thought, "Oh, I've made a terrible mistake, haven't I?" Anyway, it continued to be the most exciting, electrifying experience, because my job was to start companies. And in the 10 years we were there, I started 10 companies. And we started a venture capital company of $10 million raised, and 3 of our companies went public. It was an exciting 10 years.
I don't even know how. I was thinking about it the other day, how we discovered the first lymphoma just from a lymph node.
Yeah, you went in to have what you thought was a hernia repaired.
Oh, that's right. And it was
And I was at work, and you said, "Are you sitting down?" The doctor just called me and said, the lymph node that they removed, that was what we thought was the hernia, had cancer. And I can't tell you how. The only thing I'd ever heard from cancer was people died. They'd never got well. And let me tell you, the next few days were the most incredible. Marian and I went up on a hill by our home and prayed. And when we prayed, The heavens were opened. And we got to see the future. And she was still in. For that, she asked for a blessing, and her dad came to help me. And I asked him to be the voice. And he rebuked the disease and offered his own life as a sacrifice for hers. I'll never forget that. So humbling. We went through 6 months of surgeries in and out of the hospital. She had a
Well, some treatments they could do, but most of the treatments they had to do IV, so I'd have to go in the hospital for treatments.
so my parents and her parents took turns taking care of 5 kids under 10. The twins were 2 years old, and I would come home in the evening, and the most incredible thing, every night at 5 o'clock for 3 solid months, the doorbell would ring. Brother Alder, here's your food. And we had dinner brought to us by the ward. It was like we were literally carried on the shoulders of the ward. It was the most amazing service that you can imagine. And we made it through. Marian had very aggressive treatments. I remember one treatment was during the holidays, and the whole lining of her mouth sloughed away because the chemotherapy she was given killed all active growing cells. And
So mouth and throat.
so she had this open, ulcerated mouth and throat, and was supposed to eat at Christmas and couldn't eat anything because
I drank. I was able to drink
yeah, you could drink.
eggnog. And I am the first adult Caucasian to have ever survived a particular type of cancer. I had Burkitt's lymphoma.
It was a gift from Heavenly Father to give us some assurance in a time when it seemed like all was lost. When she had a cancer, the doctor said that at a doubling rate of 24 hours. And if they missed any, she would be dead in 3 months.
And then I've had a melanoma.
About 5 years ago, she had a melanoma on her elbow, and melanoma is extremely lethal, but we caught it early, and she had surgery. The doctor said, you'll have an incision about this big, and went clear up her arm.
It goes from my
Yes. And she never had that chemo that time.
hope. He came out and he said, well, I gave him some grief about the fact that he told me I'd have a 2-inch scar, and that his idea of 2 inches and mine were vastly different. And he said, but the cancer's gone completely. We got it all.